Hello, everybody. Welcome to, excuse my chair, day 3 of onlineness. It's very exciting. So today we are still within kind of this beginning part of creating these ideas for drafts. So take a minute and just look back over some of the work that you've done, some of the ideas that you've generated for some different pieces, and if you've started some different drafts. I know that I shared a video of me drafting for 15 minutes. So for those of you that wanted to write with somebody, you had that option. And then, of course, for you to see that it is possible to get more than one idea down in some of that time. Now, I know my light is kind of weird today, so I'll look at doing what we're going to do today a little bit differently here in just a little bit. So we are still in this idea of this brainstorming, working on our primary sources, whether those are interviews with family members, reflections about ourselves, perhaps journal entries that we're talking about, diaries, or the stories that we're telling. And in order to have some of those good ideas around, we have been working on that brainstorming. We've talked about brainstorming with people and with places that are important to us or that we can't be with anymore, or maybe we're stuck with people or places that we don't want to be. And so we've been writing a little bit about that. And then I wanted to remind you too that there's other strategies that you've learned. One of the fun ones that we did for when we just worked on personal narratives in general was like the first time we did something or the last time we did something. Like the first time I got bit by a dog versus the last time that I played the game Monopoly and the fiasco that was. So there's certainly some of that might be happening in this moment in time. And you may not take it as like the last time you would speak to this person ever, but maybe the last time you saw your friends, like thinking you were going to be there the next day at school and then suddenly we weren't. That's certainly a big one for me, for you guys. But what makes some really poignant, some very powerful writing is when we focus on the moments that we have big feelings, like we're very angry or we're very sad or we're very happy. And the moments where we learned something or realized something. And this can be like you're learning a new skill or something like that, but maybe you just learned something about the world, or you learned something different about your parents, or you realize something about yourself that you hadn't known before. And so I'm going to try to demonstrate this a little bit with how that might work with me. And of course, you all will have some pretty interesting new things because you're so much younger than me. But it'll be fun to kind of think about what are you realizing for this moment in time. Just remember, we're not going way back to when we realized that, well, maybe I shouldn't say that. I was saying about the tooth fairy or the Easter bunny. But we're talking more about these bigger pieces that we see going on in our lives. So because my notebook is a little bit light, let me just throw a piece of paper up here and write with a marker. That way you might kind of think about it a little or be able to see it a little better if you needed to. So we're talking about things that, like when we learn something or realized something. And one of the big things where I realized how much you all mean to me, just my job in general. I've been a teacher for, just about 15 years or something, and I've always enjoyed teaching ELA. I love the interaction, and I like you guys, all that kind of stuff. But I realized really how much this group of kids, you guys, have meant to me when we came back. The teachers came back those days after we weren't having any students. So after the school closed for you guys, and we were starting to realize like this this is serious. I mean, when we say that, when we close school, it's a big deal. We don't do it lightly, and knowing that a lot of people wouldn't understand um, why we would close that, especially in light of some of the worries we have for you guys. Um, I realize the seriousness and just how much I cared about you guys, and I was already a little freaking out and missing you. I know that kind of sounds weird, I guess, because I'm sure you're not missing me. But anyway, all right. So, but that was a big thing for me, because this is really, I've had some great years, but this is the first year that I've really felt connected with a lot more of you than I have in the past. So that's a big one. All right. Let's see another moment. In this time where I had some big feelings or pieces were that my daughter called one day. She's in the Netherlands, as you know, and they're on lockdown. Like they're where they are is not like where we are in Franklin County or Hart County. They're really not much allowed out without serious social distancing pieces in place. And while she is not like a super extrovert, she is not an introvert, and she needs that socialization. So when I was talking with Sarah, and although it started over there, like it kind of made me realize that how they have to behave where she lives might end up being how we have to behave here. So that was a big realization. Let's just put, I don't know, pandemic behavior. Let's see. Another thing I've learned. This may not be super interesting to you all, but for me, I have learned. I mean, as many of you know, I already have a lot of like anxious issues that go on. But one of the things I learned during this time is that it is hard for me to sit and read a book. And if you know me at all, you know that reading is it is just my go-to. It's my go-to when I'm sad. It's my go-to when I'm happy. I mean, I just have a book in my hand all the time. But with this pandemic, I'm struggling to sit and focus for any, big length of time on that. I had started to get into audiobooks in the last few months on my drive to school. And now that I'm not driving anywhere, even my audiobook listening is down. Like I can't even focus on that. So that's kind of a loss of a pastime that has helped me through a lot. So that's kind of a big deal. See, one other thing I've realized is that, of course, everybody deals with this type of social aspect that we've got going on differently. I deal with it differently than my husband, than either of our parents, and so that's caused some tension. And realizing that we really have to be able to deal with different people who don't act like us. Like, how do we deal with people when they're different from us in their reactions to things? Like, how do I get my family to take this more seriously? So that might be a couple of ideas that I can run with. I'm not sure how I could necessarily do a story about that one, but I'm very interested in writing more about that. I'll probably focus on this one because I have some pictures from that day that I could use in kind of an I remember piece, like in this book, in this one of our mentor texts, they do a lot of repetition about I remember, I remember, I remember. I don't know if you guys looked at that, but he just says, like, I remember Mr. George's car. I remember he had this. I remember FloJo's nails at the Olympics. I remember. And so I could maybe do something similar to that. So that might be what I focus on for my drafting tonight. So just keep in mind there's lots of different strategies to draw on to try to help you figure out what to write about. Remember, you don't have to have your whole story in your head all at once to begin a bit of a draft. Like I said, I'm not sure how I could write this story, but if we think of primary sources as other types of writing, like maybe I could write some kind of poem about that, or just like a journal entry about how upsetting it is to not be able to read like I used to. So it's not always about stories, like big, long narratives. It can be about other pieces that just showcase what we're going through in this moment in time. So you're still on the progression of what we're doing. We're still brainstorming, brainstorming your ideas. Choose one, draft. Choose another one, draft, right? You don't necessarily have to set a timer for 15 minutes. That's just a strategy, just a suggestion. But try not to work too much over 30 minutes. You can if you want, but I don't want you like all of a sudden 8 hours later, you're going, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get my English homework done. No, just know that the more ideas, the more beginnings of drafts that you have, then the more ideas that you have to draw from when you have to go to choose one or two to bring to publication. So you don't want to be stuck with just one draft idea and that's what you're going to be working on, because again, if it's not the best idea to bring to a published piece, then you're kind of stuck. So try very hard today to get down a couple more drafts, which means for some of you, you might be working on your 5th and 6th and 7th beginning draft, and others of us are we're still on our 1st or 2nd, 3rd with that. But the more you have when we start next week into polish, choosing one to polish up and print out, publish out, then the better off you'll be. You guys, I miss you. Tomorrow or Thursday, we'll have our small group sessions, and I will show you what we're going to do about that so that you have those choices if you want. You guys be good. Be safe.